Hello and very warm welcome to this special virtual boot camp focused on reimagining security and customer experiences for BFSI, organized by Tech Observer magazine in association with global technology giant Citrix and Orient Technologies. I am Shalini Shukla from Tech Observer magazine. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you and your family are staying healthy and safe. Today's program focuses is on how BFSI organization can deliver secure access to web and SaaS applications and protect users and employees from web-borne threats while offering world-class customer experiences. To lead the program forward, I would like to invite Mr. Tejuji, System Engineering Leader, Enterprises at Citrix India. Over to you, Mr. Tejuji.
Thank you, Shalini. Good afternoon, one and all, and thank you so much for taking time out. In next couple of minutes, what I would be covering is, as you all know, like any other industry, even banking and financial industry has hit hard when the pandemic has arrived 2 years back, right? We all were taken off guard in terms of enabling remote work. It was unheard of in the banks environments or financial institutions, right? While there bit of some hybrid work existed, but overall it was unheard of. But financial institutions were quick in adopting remote work. And finally, when we saw that pandemic has extended beyond a year or whatever, so everybody has adopted technologies and IT landscape has evolved to support hybrid work, right? So it's a continuous process. While we have adopted some of the processes and systems which could solve the problem temporarily for the hybrid work, but as you know, the pandemic has been extending and it was difficult. Right now the world has moved to hybrid work. So today we'll be covering a couple of the aspects. While hybrid work is a one element, but how do we secure it, right? As the hybrid work has increasingly become common, we also see a lot of cyber security issues that organizations face. And predominantly, as expected, banking and financial industry is the one of the industry that's hit very hard, right? There are a lot of threats that's originating. So IT systems should be prepared to tackle all these threats, right? Because banking and financial is very very critical element. So the first target obviously would become this industry, right? So let's look at some of the aspects. How at Citrix we have been working with some of the banking and financial institutions to enable the secure hybrid work, along the journey that we were part of with them. So the first and foremost, when you look at why do you look at security for the hybrid work? So as I was covering, right, from past 2 years, the hybrid work has become very very common. So workers are becoming increasingly remote, except there is an expectations that user can't do anything beyond outside of office, but every user is able to get a choice whether he should work from branch or he should work from head office, or even he can work from anywhere that he would like to, right? And second thing is the biggest gainer in all of this is a cloud. So earlier the cloud adoption was very at slow pace, but pandemic has really pushed the limits to all the organizations to adopt cloud quickly. So earlier there are a lot of inheritance in moving to cloud, but as you know, even a cloud vendors has come up with a lot of environments which are more and more security focused, and a lot of banks has adopted cloud, including O365, for example, are migrating some of those applications into cloud-based providers, so on and so forth, right? And as it became evident that users are becoming remote, at the same time the apps are ported onto any environment, so does the threats has increasing rapidly, right? So because there is a lot of internet involved in there, so a lot of false plays are happening. People try to capture the data and use it for various other purpose, right? So that's where security, cyber security becomes very very important aspect of the whole solution. So how do you enable the hybrid work with all that sophisticated security elements embedded into it, right? The first and foremost, if you look at in the security, when a hybrid work or a hybrid worker comes into play, how do you securely extend the access to your enterprise applications to the user, irrespective of the location that he sits? He might be in a branch office, he might be in a corporate office, or he might be just sitting in the home and accessing those applications, right? How do you make sure that user experience remains same irrespective of whichever location that user sits and access the corporate applications, right? Or how do you make sure the security is intact irrespective of the device that he chooses to access the applications, right? or the network that he chooses to access the application. So it's very, very important, not just providing the access to your applications, but securing them end to end, right? Not just with the encryption, but make sure that the data are protected across the endpoints of the networks. So that's where Citrix secure private access play a very, very critical role. I will obviously cover some of the elements, how it addresses these use cases, right? But in a nutshell, Citrix secure private access is a zero trust based network access solution which allows users to use any device on any network and access all the enterprise applications, right, without having to expose them to over the internet, thereby reducing the threat that applications would face in, right? So how does it work? So the applications can be enterprise applications which are hosted in your data center or on any cloud provider like Azure, AWS, GCP, or any of that matter, right? And even any banking applications, financial applications, which even if your contract employees want to access, so how do you securely deliver those applications irrespective of where they are hosted? That's what secure private access precisely does, right? The second element is we also see a lot of banks and financial institutions also started adopting solutions like O365 or some bit of SaaS applications for HRMS or various other elements, right? So how do you again enable secure access to these applications which are not hosted by the bank or a financial institution, right? It might be completely under control of cloud provider, but how do you still extend the secure access to these applications with various control? That's again secure private access provide that kind of controls and access mechanisms for organizations, right? Finally, it's not just about providing access to these applications. So even when user accesses these applications from a non-corporate device or a non-bank provided device, like for example, your contract employees who are on the field trying to interact with the customers, they would access some of the bank systems or some of the portals that they need to use to register the users or various other things, right? How do you extend the access to these applications from those contract employee devices, right? That's where again Citrix solution helps to provide access through a collapsible browser environment or a collapsible environment which provides a temporary access to that particular user with additional controls of security, right? I would obviously cover some of these controls as we go along. So, what does Citrix, secure private access provide? Primarily, the first and foremost functionality of Citrix secure private access is zero trust network access. So, as you know, zero trust network access principle, works on the principle of don't trust anyone, validate everyone, right? Obviously, we validate everyone. Second thing is you don't need to expose any of your applications to the internet. Everything is taken care by default, right? Citrix private access allows you to access all the enterprise applications without having to expose them to the internet. Second thing is adaptive authentication. When I say adaptive authentication, it's not just the identity of the user. The identity of the device and networks plays an important role when you provide access. So the level of access or the level of security control that you want to place should be varying based on the device that user chooses to access. For example, user comes from a bank provided device, the device might be already secured with various other solutions like EDR and other solutions, right? In that case, probably user experience play a vital role where I would provide direct access to those applications. At the same time, when a contract employee who is accessing a bank or financial institution applications on the field trying to serve a customer, then obviously I need to provide access to him, but I need to have extra control. So I can dynamically decide if that device is not a bank provided device or a financial institution provided device, I would automatically put policies which can control various other aspects. That's where the next functionality, the adaptive security policies comes into play. So based on the device posture, based on the network posture, I can dynamically control the security policies so that users will still get the access, but at the same time, the corporate will have level of security controls that they would wish to place on those devices, right? Finally, single sign on to all the applications. So again, this solution is not just providing access, but having that rich user experience, right? User just logs in with one identity, irrespective of whichever identity it can be. It can be bank's own identity, or it can be Azure ID or any other identity provider. He just have to log in with his credential once, and Citrix Secure Private Access enables to access all the applications. And again, apart from this, there are various other solution elements like, for example, visibility and monitoring, which continuously looks at the behavior of the user. That analytical engine can take an actions, automated actions based on the user behavior. As long as user normally access the applications, he would be allowed to access the applications. If a user starts excessive downloads, for example, from application, I can automatically disable access for the user, right? Those kind of artificial intelligence based decisions can also be taken. Finally, providing the extra protection on the devices where it's not owned by the bank. So we have gone into a extent where we could completely block the key logging softwares that would be there in the personal devices. So when the user accesses the corporate applications, the key logging software will make sure the credentials or the data entered onto the sites, for example, credit card numbers that a employee might be entering while talking to the customers, or a bank account details that he is entering, completely hashed out, and the key logging software would never be able to take out that data, right, and misuse it somewhere else. Again, the contract employees will not be able to take a screenshot of the application, because that would be completely restricted with the features of app protection that we ship along with it. And finally, as I said, the collapsible environment, virtual browser environment, which gives secure access from the non-corporate devices as well. Coupled with this, the zero trust access story of Citrix has helped a lot of customers during this journey of hybrid work, not just providing access but enabling the complete security, right? Moving on, you might ask, okay, how about the access to internet websites or other unsanctioned internet, right? So obviously, even after providing a device to the user, it's evident that user may not just access the corporate applications, but he might go and access the open internet, right? Be it be any websites, or be it be YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it, right? He can just use the same device to access various content on the internet, which is clubbed together called as unsanctioned internet, right? So how do you secure them? Because obviously anything can come from internet and then land on the corporate device or any device that user uses. How do you precisely secure that access is the another element that hybrid work poses a risk for institutions. So for that, again, Citrix secure internet access provides a great bit of relief with the solutions like secure web gateway functionality, where I can classify in terms of what websites user can access, what websites he will not be able to access from the device. Features like firewall can block the content based on various elements, right? So, like for example, it can block content based on the ports or based on the protocols, various other things, which decides what user will have access to, what he will not have access to, right? And finally, I can even go into an extent where the features like CASB, cloud access security broker, prevent the data loss, right? Like for example, I would block access to personal O365 account, or I would block attachment upload to Gmail, or onto I will block messaging within the Facebook. Those kind of granular security controls I can put even after allowing the open internet. Instead of just blocking the Gmail, I can allow him to access the Gmail, but I will block posting any content on the Gmail. He will just have almost like a read-only access to Gmail. Such kind of preventive measures I can take with the cloud access security broker. Malware protection, again, what we can do is we can look into SSL inspection elements of the traffic that user is accessing over the internet, and based on the threat, almost with the real time, I can look at what threats are originating from the internet and completely block that websites which are trying to induce this threat into the endpoint, right? It's almost happens in the real time with the kind of integrations that we have with 10 plus threat engines, right? Finally, managing the SaaS. So we also block the shadow kind of thing where users can have, for example, level. We can control the level of access on all of these public websites. For example, a marketing team can have full access into the Facebook so that they can post the content on the Facebook, whereas a normal user or a branch user will not have same level of access on Facebook. He might have only read-only access to Facebook. Again, YouTube. I might completely block the high definition videos on YouTube or unwanted content on the YouTube, where our education related content, he might still go ahead and access the YouTube. So the crux of the solution here is it has all the features and functionalities which can completely block the website based on their category, or allow them but still restrict some element within the website. Third, it can have a data loss prevention by disabling some of the functionalities so that the corporate data is not up in the internet. And finally, alerting mechanisms with the analytics, right? It can completely keep monitoring what's happening with the user access, and block or raise the risk indicator based on level of threats that user is seeing from the internet, right? So in a nutshell, we will provide access to both corporate applications using zero trust principle. At the same time, we also secure the internet access for the user irrespective of what he tried to access, right? We can completely control that. So overall, on the same device, user can have securely having private access to all the applications hosted by IT, whichever location it might be. It might be cloud hosted, on-prem, or SaaS applications. At the same time, we also secure complete internet access that user will do from the same device, either completely restricting it or having a controlled access to internet. Both are possible with a one single solution, so that user will have a same experience irrespective of which device he chooses to work, right? So overall, security is completely kept intact, and the IT systems would be alerted whenever we see a threat in it, right? So that's quickly I would like to cover in terms of how Citrix helps in securing the overall hybrid work. Over to you, Shah.
Thank you, Mr. Tejuji, for giving an insightful presentation and explaining how organizations can deliver secure access to the internet while ensuring a great customer experiences. Now we are moving to a panel discussion on the topic of reimagining security and customer experiences for BFSI in new normal. The discussion will be moderated by Mr. Raghav Rachuri, Senior Security Leader from BFSI industry. He will be joined by Mr. Devdatta Kurane, Digital HR Evangelist and former CHRO, Yes Bank. Mr. Bhushan Hatkar, Chief Manager, IT, SBI Mutual Funds, Mr. Abhishek Ishar, Senior Vice President, Yes Bank, Mr. Manvendra Manna, Deputy Vice President, Axis Bank, Mr. Shiven Srivastav, AVP, IT, Bandhan Bank, Mr. Ashish Yadav, Senior Manager, Cyber Security, Indian Bank, Mr. Ashwini Rao, Sales Leader, BFSI, PSU and Government, Citrix, India. Mr. Savid Costa, Deputy General Manager of Orient Technologies. Now over to you, Mr. Rachuri ji.
My name is Rachuri, ex-CISO of Sydney. I retired nearly a year back. I have a wide and varied experience of more than 35 years in IT security, cyber security, and BCM, having worked in various capacities during my long tenure. I am currently working as an independent freelance consultant, senior consultant, and associate myself with various other companies. I'm very happy to invite you all and the esteemed panel members for discussion on this interesting topic that has been given to us, that is the reimagining security and customer experience for the BSI. As you know, as we are completing the second year of this grim COVID pandemic situation and still facing the COVID restrictions, on and off lockdowns and various other protocols, we have adopted a paradigm shift in our work culture. As the previous speaker was mentioning, we have adapted and also adapted ourselves to the new working environment of remote working, work from home, hybrid work model, workplace, etc. The BFI sector is especially vulnerable for the risk it carries for carrying out online financial transaction which involves money, and also due to the value of the data that it hosts. Hackers sell the stolen financial data and also the banking credential to the highest bidder in underworld, and also use it to siphon off millions of rupees and dollars. The potential attack surface is now, what is happening is that it is started growing in size, owing to it their larger digital footprint that we are having now. Almost now everything is carried out remotely and on online. Hence, we need to revisit and reassess our cybersecurity and also the customer experience landscape. In this context, I would like to ask some key challenges and the questions that the BFS sector at large is facing. To start with, I would like to invite upon Mr. Abhishek Izar and also Mr. Girish Chattam. First, Abhishek Izar, in the light of the fact that customer experience is becoming a differentiator for many industries, how do you think that the you view the CX and the BFI sector? What is your take on that, Mr. Abhishek? I think Mr. Abhishek is not around. I would like to ask the question to Mr. Girish. Girish is also around. Okay. Who is the other banking person? Banking right person would be Mr. Deodat. He is from the banking background. Mr. Deodat Kurani.
Okay, so let me give you a perspective on this. Though I left the bank a couple of months back, but I was pretty much there when the COVID struck and the lockdown, came. And initially, of course, it was work from nowhere because people didn't know what to do, and then slowly orders started coming in, that bit of chaos, and then the work from home and all those things started. So, I'm aware that most of the other participants are the experts in the security, IT security, and all that, whereas I'm from the human resources side. So I would just like to put this perspective over here. What are the challenges? Because, one of the things we realized in this whole work from home and which is continuing today is that the tail end of this entire security chain is the last mile, is the employee, the end of the whole chain. And we could have very, very robust systems. That means the pipeline could be very, very secure, but ultimately it has to have a exit or opening somewhere, and that opening is in the form of the last mile employee. So, one of the points which I want to put before the participants is that perhaps there is one less thought of aspect of data security, and I'll come to customer experience a little bit later. Is the security which is provided or which is expected to be provided by each individual employee? Because, see, at the end of the day, many of these security solutions are only secure to the extent, let's say, that a third party cannot, get into the data in between. They cannot intercept it or break the encryption and so on and so forth. Other aspect, of course, which is not covered right now is what happens if the customer shares his credentials and all those frauds. That's a different matter. But the real threat of customer data getting leaked out, ultimately, the employee can write down the card number, the employee can write down something. You can take a photo of the screenshot may be fully disabled, but photos can be taken. So the point I'm trying to make is many of these threats, some people will say that they existed even when the office environment was there. But I think there's a very marked difference, and this is the difference we need to take into account. Is that when a large number of employees, let's say from an operations group or even outsourced employees doing back end data entry work, etc., uh, they were working in an office environment, there is a implied control. There are some other controls which can be there, in terms of you don't take your mobile phone into the workplace, keep your mobile phone away, etc. Uh, there could be, even in very stringent areas, you could actually do a search and
Particularly the treasury and other areas. Yes.
sorry.
Particularly the treasury and other areas
Yeah,
which are
so we
very
could
high
have
risk.
all those kind of controls in a workplace. Now what happens is when the employee is working from his home, these natural constraints, or rather the organizational constraints, have been completely removed. So the employee is working in a very autonomous fashion. My limited point over here is that I think one aspect of security, data security, and customer security, etc., is a huge kind of a cultural and training exercise which needs to be done, because the employee has to be made aware that, look, you are the endpoint custodian of all the security installation which the company is doing. You could invest crores and crores into fantastic solutions, but they can go completely wrong at the end of the day. I reminded of a very, very short story, if you permit me. My father was in the army, and there's one story which has been told many times. It said that in the frontier front area, a general was visiting, and the ordinary foot soldier who was a sentry, he stopped the general at night from coming into the camp and asked him the password, and that is the practice in the army. So the general, for some reason, did not give the password or didn't want to give the password. He didn't remember it, or he thought that he's a general, so he doesn't require the password. So the soldier said, "No, sorry, sir, you cannot. You don't give the password. You don't enter the camp." The ending of this story is told in various different ways by different people. Some say the general rewarded him. Some say the general fired him. But the reason for telling this story over here is, I think each employee is like that sentry now, and whatever the process and the system which the camp may have set up for security, it is only as good or as bad as that last mile sentry. So my point, which I'm trying to put before the panel and before the participants, is that we should concentrate on a fairly large cultural change exercise. Employees have to be trusted. We have to build that trust quotient, because I've noticed one thing in human nature, that if you show distrust in people and try to do excessive policing, people go the other opposite side and prove it to you that that policing was required. Whereas if you trust people, I'm not saying that you trust blindly, but if you trust people, you find that outcomes are sometimes a bit more positive. So this is my take at this point of time, and we have had success in this in the bank also, because in the beginning of the COVID, when people started working from home, it was the bank, the central bank, Reserve Bank didn't allow banking services to get suspended. So they said that branches have to be open. Your transactions, your cash management, your digital banking, so many channels have to be open, and obviously all these employees could not come to the office, so they had to be given access to applications, even to some of the core banking system, this thing. So basically, my point here is that I think we should focus on the last mile security, which is in the form of the employee.
Thank you, Mr. Kurane. You've brought in your rich experience of HR. I think you have brought that element of the HR background there to give us the real insights into how the human aspect, HR aspects work over here. That's true. Uh, there has always been a challenge ever since this lockdown happened, to balance between the convenience of working from home and at the same time ensuring that the security and business continuity happens without major issues for the banks. Having said that, I would like to now invite Mr. Anand Yadav of Indian Bank. I think he's a senior person of cyber security. So my question to you would be like, hybrid working is now a reality, like we all accept it. And so banks need to protect all customers and employees, not only customers, but also employees also now, because they are working from
Yeah.
home, a remote location and all that. So, and also they are using various applications, as the speaker before pointed out, there are certain sensitive applications are also we are made to give them access from home. So in that light, how do you look
Yeah.
at the cloud delivered security stacks for strengthening security posture? Is cloud all
Yeah.
a solution that banks can adopt cloud, because banks always being a bit wary about adapting internet and cloud securities? How do you foresee these things spanning out in another, say, 3 or 5 years? So can you please
Yeah.
throw some light on that?
Yeah. 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 So first of all, I would like to say thanks to all of you to inviting me in such a loaded forum, and the you choose the right topic for the right in the right time. So I would like to just first introduce that in a government sector, generally I'm belongs to the Indian bank, so we are not exactly on that cloud, in a public cloud, but we are using the our own data center, hosted on premise private cloud. So till this day we are having very less footprint on public cloud, like we are using Office 365, which
Yeah.
sir already made the comment like that we are using, but yes, and but we are using so many solutions like spear phishings and in future we are trying to buy some more solution like deception technology and some other data security and DLP related solution. But currently we are having very less footprint. But at the time we are actually at the time of pandemic, our bank staff is using PIM and secured VPN. Through that they are accessing and providing the support to the bank and the customers. I'm basically more toward the cybersecurity part. So exactly that particular thing which we are doing, we are using the PIM solution and VPN solution for accessing the secure devices and on premise and off premise. And in the government bank we are not having that type of work from home options, as you all aware. So I got 2 time COVID positive. So we are continuously going to that data center and DR site. So uh, so uh, so I would like to close it this like that only. So we are continuously on premise and we are supporting from there only.
Okay,
Sir.
thank you, Ashish. As you rightly mentioned, the Office 365 and email has been the first candidates for banks to be go on cloud. In fact, many banks went just before the lockdown happened. Even my bank, earlier I worked, we moved sometime in 2019 the end, and we were lucky to be on online for email and other things. So it worked so smoothly during our lockdown time. We were able to manage most of the work sitting at home. As you know, initially the 3 months it was complete lockdown, and there were a lot of cases that happened in our office. And it was we were saved by Office 365 and also the other tools that we posted on the website. Thanks to our ex CMD who was pushing very hard to put these things on online so that we can access from home. Yeah, you are right. Banks are a bit hesitant and they are not a very easily, they don't adapt cloud securities for obvious reasons, security and other things. Now, coming to the next question, I would like to invite upon Mr. Shivendra. Mr. Shivendra Srivastava, I think he is online from Bandhan Bank. Along with offering a great, are you on? Are you switching on your camera, Mr. Shivendra?
Yes, yes, I am there.
Thank you. Thank you. Along with offering a great customer experience and ensuring the security has become a key concern for BFSI industry. As a leader, what kind of cloud security framework within your organization do you follow for securing internet access? That is, internet access is now taken as granted. It is given. Without internet, now we are not able to work, even not only at home, even from at office. So, what are your views on that?
So basically, in last foundation where I work, we have provided means in the bank has actually taken a call to provide some most of the customer a Chromebook kind of laptop wherein, and bank has also started to give them convince for this work from home and Wi-Fi and everything. We have also kind of over the cloud, over the Azure cloud, we have taken kind of a private cloud over that over the Azure cloud. We have tried to just put it on the limits on the cloud and use only the bank IPs and other things are will be in the separate VLANs, and according to that, the user can access their PCs and everything. It is connected to a kind of a direct access, which it goes to the cloud, but it goes through the bank network. So it is like that you are controlling the user. They can access the whatever they want, but everything is going to the bank network. So whatever the controls we have in our organization, which we have built for the cloud security, it's already implied there. So based on the basis of that, we are trying to achieve that, and we were quite successful in doing that. We have instead of means more putting on the infrastructure side, also we have taken a kind of initiative to put our application security kind of thing, wherein we have pushed all the details are masked and only role based access will be there. And if a user wants to see something which is not he's supposed to do, there will be alerts are getting generated, and it directly it the security team catches that, and he can also have a call with them and or identify them, send them mail, and we can track that also. That is how we have done that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ashwini Rao. You being from the industry Citrix, that is one of the pioneers thing. In fact, in Sydney, we were one of the earliest adopters some 2 decade back. Way back in 2001, we migrated to Citrix, which was the only few solutions that were available for remote working and deploying of apps, even the legacy applications, even COBOL applications and other things which we had. And we were in a different platform, and most of applications were in-house developed softwares. And you cannot easily migrate those applications to, say, Java or other things. So we adapted Citrix in those days. We were one of the earliest adapters. So you being from that, which has got a legacy of providing this kind of solutions, what is your take on the cloud security framework? How do you think banks evolving and adapting these solutions, and what has been your personal experience? Can you give your share your thoughts and experiences, particularly how you are able to, if you can share some live case study of how did you solve the solution, solve the some challenges faced by the banks? Can you please throw
Yeah,
some light?
good afternoon, Mr. Raghav and fellow panelists and the audience. I think it's a very interesting topic that we're discussing today, reimagining security while keeping in mind the customer experience. While, I'll try to answer the question asked by Mr. Raghav. I would just like to give you an analogy on the entire security landscape, right? I mean, we live in cities in India where there is a security available on the road. There are barricades put and the police is present on the ground. I don't know how many people feel safe in that. I think most of the people probably get scared that this kind of a security checks are being put. But if you look at a city like Singapore, where there's enough and more security, but you hardly see a policeman. As a normal citizen, you probably feel more comfortable, going around, roaming around, and you know that you are not the one who's going to get caught very clearly. So these are both securities, right? I mean, the flavor is different. Similarly, in organization, and I will pick up, from where Mr. Kurani left, that at the end of it, it's the employee who's very vulnerable. He's used to working in a very secured environment inside the office premises where they go and they have their designated desktops or
Yes.
the company provided laptops, and they are working there. They are not concerned about the data security or I'm talking about 99% of the general employees. One or two could be rogue who will try to steal the data, but those concerns are not there. But ever since they are operating from home, the issue is that how do you start working and make sure that everything is protected. And very interestingly, the example that you gave of SIDBI, and we are actually in the BFSI space, not only in India but globally. Citrix is the de facto choice because we are the only company which secures your the customer application and data while making sure that the customer experience or the user experience is very very they should not feel like that they are working remotely. One of the use cases which came to our limelight was the use case of a contact center, right? The contact center employees don't only need tools like Zoom or Teams or calling facilities, but they also need the context. Because as a customer, if I am calling a contact center agent who's sitting at home and working, if he or she doesn't have the entire context of the customer, the whole experience will go for a toss. So how do you provide those protected applications and the data which is inside the four walls of the organization to outside to someone who's sitting in remote areas, and then not only at home, they could be anywhere. So Citrix philosophy always says that you can use any device from anywhere and use any applications. Like Mr. Raghav said that they are legacy applications. In the pandemic, we cannot tell the customers that you have to move everything to cloud or change all the applications from legacy to monolith to microservices. That's not possible, right? How do you make sure, and Citrix has been doing that for 30 years, that make sure that there is no disruption in services, and every kind of application, whether hosted in your data center or web applications, or applications which are hosted on public cloud, are given access to the employees. And in between, whatever happens, the entire security is taken care by Citrix, so that tomorrow the employee, even if they want, some, I think Mr. Kurane only made a mention of somebody clicking the photo. But what if everything that I open has a very clear watermark on every page, which shows my name or my login ID, which is there as a watermark. So even if I click, that data, if it gets stolen, it's going to have my print all over. So, and Tejo spoke about the anti-key logging. Whatever I'm typing here, only the garbage is traveling, and the application is taking care of it. So these are some of the things which we are doing, and obviously going forward, we are going to enhance as much as possible. And last but not the least, I'll take another 10 seconds. Another thing which comes in the user experience is whether I'm using a simple application like Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, or I'm using something to do with video and audio. My experience should, the Citrix layer takes care of the experience using a technology called HDX, and allocates the bandwidth accordingly. So these are some of the things which we have done, and we are serving almost every bank in the country as we speak.
Yeah, being one of the users of Citrix, one of the key advantages of using that tool is that the any application can remain in its native environment. All that it needs to be done is to just publish it or go and publish it on Citrix, whether it is COBOL environment, Java environment, Fortran, or any other environment, or .NET or anything. So that's the key advantage of having Citrix. Yes, you are right. We have been one of the users of earliest adopters also. So coming, just moving on from there. So I would like to invite upon Mr. Bhushan. So what are the two, see, establishing a secure infrastructure for BFI's transaction is one of the key requirement now. Finding ways to increase the flexibility without compromising on security. So that is the requirement considering the current situation. So, what are the two key immediate priorities for you when it comes to beefing up the customer experience and security? Maybe you can share your thoughts on that. I think you come from uh, insurance sector, right?
No, I'm from mutual fund sector.
Mutual
So
sector. Yeah.
predominantly mutual fund
So
has
we
been
can get different point of view apart from banking.
yeah. So basically, mutual fund has traditionally been a paper-based, transaction systems. If you look at last 3-4 years, mutual fund has now become digitization. So we also, as SBI Mutual Fund, planned our digital journey for around 6 years back when we launched a new website and mobile app. Right. So now, from our perspective, the major critical customer experience is the way our distributors, our end users connect to us, and they are able to transact with us, right? So that way, providing scale of size, then having for the best in piece kind of encoding environment standards. So that was one of the key requirements that we had. So we had to change the way we code, right? So doing DevOps and doing DevSecOps, more than DevOps board, DevSecOps was a priority for us. Secondly, looking at the current threats and being, with State Bank Group, it comes with its own, risks, right? Because as a brand, State Bank is one of the biggest bank and one of the biggest groups in the country today, right? So securing the perimeter was one of the key challenges. Secondly, providing all our people accesses to applications seamlessly because we have regulatory requirements. Our NAVs have to be published within cut off times, etc. So over there, like Citrix has some solutions. We adopted some equivalent solutions from other service providers, and we were able to achieve those targets. Now, looking forward, we are looking at that we looking at scaling looking at security, we are now planning for a cloud journey, right? So we had a RFP that was floated, and we are looking at a lock, stock, barrel movement completely to cloud based on our evaluations, internal assessments, and we are in a finalization stage as of now to move to the cloud. So over there, we have engaged a consultant. We have created a new set of frameworks in terms of operations, in terms of security guidelines, in terms of security configurations into cloud, what all things have to be checked on day one when the application goes live or would become live, the kind of changes that we anticipate in the application layer in terms of coding, in terms of key management, session management, your access to databases from applications, right? How do we secure them? How do we ensure that things are the way they are secure in, say, on premise, okay, to a certain extent, which are in our control? How do we do it into cloud? So that is what we have done in the pandemic. We had a robust framework earlier where we had a continuous BCP drills that were done from home, from the BCB location, from DR sites, right? In fact, we had people to work on mobiles network, right, as a part of the BCB drills. So those things helped us during the onset, right? So March end, when we had the lockdown announced, right, we were able to quickly move into the pandemic era, right, where people were able to work, we were able to deliver every regulatory requirements on time. But of course, it had its own issues in terms of sales, right, because most of the branches were closed. In fact, our business partners were also closed, except for the banking channel. Nobody was open, right? So over there, we had to invest heavily into digitization, invest heavily into customer experience from a transaction perspective.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bhushan. Now, I mean, this is a very vast subject also. Now, I would like to invite one Mr. Savio to share his views and thoughts. What have been your experience, and whether how AI and ML is going to be used in cybersecurity, or how KYC security technologies are being adopted, or also about how security implementations is happening in the BFI sector. If you can share your thoughts on that as a concluding remarks. I think you are on mute, Mr. Savio. Can you switch on your mic?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thanks for reminding me that.
No, never.
Yes, if you look at how the pandemic has helped digitalization take leaps and bounds, I think it has helped us in many ways. One is that if you look at it today, as Bhushan sir has rightly said, that online transactions happened more frequently now. Gone were the days when it used to happen. Everybody would visit a branch and things like that. So now adoption of cloud, adoption
Yeah,
of security.
all my mutual fund investments have happened online only, including my
Yeah,
KYC thing.
but then still it was a paperwork which was done, and then taken to the back office, and then one. But today it's all online. So thanks to the digitalizing pace which we have picked up over the period of during this pandemic also. Most of the transactions, be it banking transactions, also are being done today on the internet only, and it's done still yet online, and more transactions are being done online. So companies like Paytms and the likes are growing. Keeping in mind all these aspects, if you look at it, security plays a very important role, and what we have seen is that each and every company, be it BFSI, non-BFSI, everybody is looking at security in a very big way. And if you look at it, the disruption which has happened is that no, we have always looked at security in a very structured way. That is your data center, your HOs, your ROs, your ZOs, and the branches. But now it's gone beyond that, and it's gone to the edge. And when we say the edge, like as Ashwini Rao has said, that Citrix has the solutions to help you secure, first of all, the edge. be it on the internet, and be it your private means data center applications also. So that's one way where Citrix plays a role. The second is accessing it from anywhere, any device, and still making it secure. As Mr. Kurana also said that I like that story of Mr. Kurana, and he said that okay, the general was not allowed, so it's a zero trust network, and that's a zero trust which is being brought into picture. And today, if you look at Citrix by itself, and many customers themselves are looking at zero trust. They're not trusting anybody because it can so happen that I may be compromised, and through my endpoint, I can reach to the bank's network. So these are some of the aspects which I feel are being taken care of by the banks and rightly taken care of. Yeah, but security is always is kind of never 100%. They still get leaps and bounds to grow. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
So, Raghav, if I may just share one thought. Uh,
Yeah, please
we
go ahead.
spoke a lot on security, but if you talk about the customer experience, I would like to just add that, delinking this from COVID and pandemic, one of the things is that, there is a whole lot of online, and I think the benchmarking in the minds of normal customer is, let's say that benchmark something with an Amazon kind of ease of doing work. But, some of the facilities in Amazon cannot be given in a BFSI application because of, variety of reasons, regulatory reasons, etc. So this is one part where I think the expectation setting and benchmarking also is very important, because some bank may say that my application is great, but if you look at it, ultimately it has to be as good as Swiggy or ease of ordering like Zomato. Because when I was in the bank, we used to say the HR application should be benchmarked like that. This is one part. The other last point I want to mention is, this whole customer experience. If you'll notice, all of us have got a call from some telemarketer from some company, and that person has the most irritating voice, the most irritating manner of speaking, and they completely put you off the product. Even if you intended to buy that product, you will never buy it.
And they repeat same thing like a parrot of what they have been taught,
Absolutely.
and they never ask reply to the queries that we raise. That is the problem.
Correct. So my point here is that while we are investing a lot in in the technology for the customer interface, the UI, the UX, and all that, but I think somewhere the investment is falling short on the human resource. And I'm a human resource guy, so I will stress that point, that the quality of resource, the training, the approach, etc. And these are not seamless. And last 30 seconds is, I'll give the example, in your own house. If you see, there is a material of how we build a house is various, right? Cement, concrete, next to that is wood, next to that is a piece of marble or something. These two have to be all fitted together in a very beautiful manner. So technology, human interface, contact center, telecaller, these are different types of material, not like building material, but these are all interface material. And I think inadequate attention is paid to this, and therefore the big gaps come in this. I just
And
Yeah,
want to put
I
you.
I
yeah,
agree with you, and
totally there.
just like to add, there are three key components. The first component is the organization, who's basically the owner of the application and the data. The second component on the other end is the user who's accessing that data, and in between there's a layer which is the custodian of the data, which is the people who are setting the security and making sure everything goes as per the organization policies. And the BFSI industry is slightly different from the manufacturing or rest of the industries, because it comes under a lot of regulatory compliances and governance as well. Their data is not the same data as of a manufacturing organization. The entire IP is completely different, right? Now, basically, today, if we look at the organizations, they say that we need a very seamless experience in all three layers. We want our users our users should not get hackled by putting passwords throughout the day, or getting into VPN and this and that. They should be able to have a single sign on for all their applications. This is one of the asks, very clear from most of the customer. The second very critical component is that the administrators don't want a situation or deploy solutions which will take them, hours and hours and sleepless nights to manage. So they want ease of management. And the organizations say that, whatever you do, make sure my data and my application is completely protected. And obviously, whoever is authorized to see whatever, just like in an office, if it is a legal department, they'll just have access to their own applications. The marketing will have access to their own applications. They can't see what the legal is doing. So similarly, even when you are working from home, the experience has to be similar. So I think Citrix as an organization is taking care of all these aspects. This is what I wanted to conclude with.
Yeah,
True.
yeah, I can
And
second
there,
that also, and that really leads to a better customer experience also. So when you talk about customer experience, it is timely delivering the data to that user in such a way that he can resolve the query at that moment in time and not come back to him or say to the customer that, sir, I'll come back to you tomorrow or the after tomorrow. And that's I think being delivered by Citrix, and yeah, like, so that's from my side.
yeah,
I,
that's
I
true.
was thinking Ashwini for that.
The customer experience is very important aspect, which is often overlooked, as a couple of speakers have mentioned. In fact, I can share one of my recent experience. I was very pleasantly surprised that one of my friends suggested that I invest in one of the Tamil Nadu Power Finance Corporation FDs. It's very easy. This thing, it's giving a very good interest rate and all that. I thought, why to take the risk? Anyway, one day I was sitting like this and I had some spare cash. I thought, why don't I try? I just tried, and the entire process of registering, providing the KYC, everything was so smoothly handled and step by step. And and just to remember, there was no human interface at all. It was completely online. But I had a very pleasant experience of the entire process went through within 25 minutes flat, and the FD was ready. And I started getting my this thing. Even though I made a beginning there, I felt I thought Tamil Nadu is a state government. It will not be proper. I mean, first of all, there is a risk of investing in such a company, and then there is a we don't know whether proper hand holding will be there and all that. But the entire experience left me stunned because even a very small state government organization can handle it so well. As Mr. Ashwini and Surya mentioned, customer experience is very important. That only will give you repeat customers. That only will acquire more than acquiring customer, as you all know, is very difficult. But retaining the customer is the easier part, provided you give a very good customer experience. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
will like
I do
to.
agree. I do agree with the panel. But apart from the external customers, keeping your internal customers with the same kind of an experience level is also of utmost importance, because if you keep your internal customers happy, those guys will actually go ahead and get you the revenues, right? They will be able to deliver you the value, right? As far as, I mean, what Devdutta sir said, right, from a human resource perspective. So if you look at last 2 years, right, we have been into a very different world where the requirement of technology has changed drastically with various organizations due to this entire work from home. But what have we done in order to ensure that the resources that are delivering these services to you are able to capture the essence of those, are able to understand the products more, right? So that is also an user experience, right? If I have a frustrated L1 engineer who doesn't know what is he supposed to do, he will not be able to deliver that value to internal customers, right? So that trainings, that knowledge transfer, or the knowledge acquisition by our own people internally has to be given more focus right now, because in this decade what we see, the digitalization is going to be more, right? So you'll have more people working online. There will be more people who would need to develop more and more products, because see, finally it is BFSI needs to compete with likes of Zomatos and Swiggy's for the way they deliver the services, right? Today everybody expects the same thing, right? So if you want to go into that level, we need to invest into those kind of resources, right? I mean, if you look at the PSU banks, they have their own problems in terms of hiring, right? If you look at the other, I mean, if you look at recent newspaper articles also, right, the job market is tremendous. It is fluctuating like the demand and supply is very much not in sync with what we would have seen in last 2 years back, right? So even a 4 year, 5 year developer is expecting around 15 lakh kind of a story, right? So it is time that we invest into people who are there with us today to ensure that they stay with us for a longer time and deliver the value that we expect, and they feel that they are valued in that aspect also.
They should
So I
become the
would like
brand
to add, sir.
internal brand ambassadors.
Raga
Yeah.
sir, I would like to add on what Rao sir said that, and Ashwini sir also extended that. Why we are not going to replace this customer experience with customer science? So for the exacting why I'm saying this. So the science, the customer science combines the technology. So what Ashwini sir is saying that when we introduce the technology with the customer relationship, like internal customer means employees, or our customers, banking customers, and financial customers. So when we introduce the this customer science with the technology, customer experience with the technology, so the like data science, artificial intelligence, IoT and ML will required, and other technology required, also required, that like what Citrix is offering to us. So these type of technology be really required for hassle free experience. So yes, so I'm agree with the Ashwini sir and what Rao sir is saying.
Yeah, I think that is the way forward, because most of, as Mr. Deodatta rightly mentioned, most of the front end people who are in the managing these help centers, they are not adequately trained and they are not having proper knowledge also. So one of the ways to help them is these AI and other techniques. When you raise a query, the customer asks a query, they should be able to ask these queries and get for the information from the back end without any human intervention. So
Yeah.
these are the areas that AI, ML, and all going to help in a big way. But yes, the customer experience largely depends on the front end that is provided. So adequately training the front end people is very very important aspect. As a votary of HR, I am also a big votary of HR. So I fully endorse these points that have been shared by all of you, the esteemed speakers. Any other thoughts any of you would like to mention? Any other thoughts,
Our
or
in
if we are
Indian
done
Bank,
with that?
in Indian Bank, we are trying to provide the customer as a banking as a service. So we are going to if we required this thing, we definitely required Citrix and other supporting kind of solution, and we required this machine learning and AI. As I already mentioned that we are having a less footprint on cloud banking. So definitely for deception kind of technology and this spear phishing, so definitely we have to go for a cloud, because cloud only can give that much amount of data required for supporting these type of application, like sticks and taxi framework, and threat hunting framework, and and other kind of threat hunting activities. So it required these kinds of support, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, cloud AI and all is going to, whether we like it or not, it is going to happen. Only the percentage may vary depending on the individual sectors concerned about privacy and other regulatory requirements, etc. For example, banking, insurance are all highly regulated, and the privacy and other aspects scores higher compared to other facilities that are provided. But it depends on the type of the amount of comfort that they get in adapting these technologies, but it is going to happen slowly and surely. So with those concluding remarks, I would like to hand over back to Ms. Shalini. Provided if anybody else has got anything else to share, they can tell. Otherwise, I would like to hand over to
No,
Ms.
thank you
Shalini.
everyone for a lovely discussion, and thanks to all the audience for participating in a very
Thank
lively
you.
debate. Thank you. Over to you,
Yeah,
Shalini.
thank you, Mr.
Thank
Rachuri ji,
you, thank
and
you,
all
one
the
and all.
speakers.
Just a second,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Shalini.
you, everybody.
Thank you. It has been
Thank you.
quite interesting to interact with all the senior
Yeah,
people like you and all. and the amount of experience and the insights they brought in was quite useful for the discussion. I would like to thank each and every member for providing these opportunities, and also Ms. Shalini and this tech company which has provided me. Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Shalini, you can take over.
Yeah, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rachuri ji, and all the speakers for sharing your views and being part of this program. With this, we have now come to the conclusion of this special virtual boot camp. Hope you had enjoyed the discussion, and we look forward to hosting you again. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
Yeah,
very
Thank you
much.
all.
in the panel.